The sign has disappeared.
Yes, we are live now, so just a few more minutes and then we'll welcome everybody. 2 more minutes. Good evening, everyone. While we wait for everyone to get settled, kindly send me your questions, your comments, and greet everyone. Thank you. It's good to have you here with us. Thank you so much. So 2 more minutes and then I'll welcome everyone and we'll get started. Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome. As we wait for our guest to get here with us, I would like to welcome each and every one of you for making the time to be here. I'm expecting that it's going to be an exciting evening where we can learn how to survive in the current times, and like we said, maybe even thrive. We are very lucky today that we are going to be hosted essentially by Mike Eldon. Everyone knows Mike Eldon. He's a force unto himself, but also he's a very good educator, advisor, and we are really lucky that he's a friend of this forum, and we call on him from time to time when he's when we need advice. And today he is hosting our guest and we'll get all your questions to him. So keep them coming, keep them coming. I would also like to acknowledge a few guests that I will call on to ask a question. One of them is a past speaker, Mr. Jab of Nedbank. Jab is here with us today and he'll ask one question. I would also like to acknowledge Mr. Bill Lay. Everyone knows Mr. Bill Lay if you have been on these sessions before. So we are looking forward to that. And the last one that we will also be looking forward to is Mr. John Gumi. He will also be with us and to ask a question and perhaps give us a comment as to where he thinks we are headed for maybe the next 5 years. So your questions, keep them coming so that we collate them and have them ready for Mr. Manu. Thank you. Let's find out where Mr. Manu is. Just a second. So we are still waiting for Mr. Manu to log in, and Mike will keep us updated on that. I've asked him to kindly follow up and see if there is a problem logging in, but we expect him here shortly. In the meantime, I see a lot of greetings, but I don't see questions yet. And I would like to be able to prepare those while we wait for them to get in. I see you, Belay, you're logging in from Taita. It's good to see you. Eric Wakabi, I see you. Good that you're here. And everyone. So let's see some of those questions so that we can put them, we can get them in good order and ready for when Mr. Manu logs in.
Irene?
Hello, Mike, you're very far away. We can't hear you. You kind of sound like a whisper.
Can you hear me?
It's not me, is it?
What's happening?
We've lost you. Your sound is off. Yeah,
faint.
It's very faint. Yeah.
I've spoken to Manu, and he's waiting for someone to connect him.
Hello?
I have spoken to Manu, and he's waiting for someone to connect him.
I wonder what email address he's using. What is he using his name? Because we were looking out for his email address. Okay, let's just find that out.
that rehearsal. It was fine.
Mike, could you please share the link again with Manu? He might be using something, a different login or something, because you had given him the login and he should be able to get in now. He should be able to log in now. Nobody should have to let him in.
Yeah, he should type on the chat and say his Manu maybe, because I think the name is different.
Yeah, and or let us know if he's using a different name.
I've reconnected. I think you can hear me now, can't you?
Yes, we can hear you now. And you had said that Manu was trying to log in, but we are still, yeah, we're looking for him and we can't find him. I was wondering if he's using a different name.
Yeah, I spoke to him just about
Yeah.
2 minutes ago. And he's waiting to be logged in. Shall I say a little bit about Manu whilst we're waiting?
Yes.
Well, he's an extraordinary guy. In just over a month's time, he'll be 93 years old. 93.
93.
Mm.
Wow. Yeah.
I've known him since 1978. I've known him for a long time. And it's mainly through Rotary, where Irene is also a member, and where many of our Rotary Club members will be in with us here now to listen to their friend, our friend, Manu. He was born in Kenya. His father arrived here in 1915, and he opened a shop in Biashara Street, a very modest background. And in another interview, Manu said that he wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth, but at least, he added, they had spoons in the house. They had spoons. His father had very limited formal education and in fact didn't speak hardly any English. He needed assistance with anything to do with banks or you name it. But he was very determined that his children would get an education and made great sacrifices, as so many parents do in those kinds of circumstances, for that to happen. And after his schooling here and time in India, he went off to America, where he did 2 degrees in mechanical engineering. And I was looking forward, and I hope I still will be able to ask him, why didn't you become a mechanical engineer? He did an undergraduate degree and a master's degree in mechanical engineering. And he came back then and he joined the family business. He went to the States in the late 40s and returned here in 1951, way before independence, way before. So he joined the family business and started with other younger generation Chandarias building it up. At a very early stage, he had this idea that it would be good to start.
Sorry, Mike, to interrupt. Is it possible for you to re-text him, perhaps on WhatsApp, the link? He might be using a wrong link.
Okay.
Because we still can't find him on the team. So if you could please, I've sent him an email, but if you're in touch with him, let's.
All right. Okay, let me do that. We might get John Gumi or someone to talk a little bit about Manu meanwhile.
Or Bill. Bill, where are you?
Oh, here's Sally Gitoho has volunteered to look for Manu. So shall I carry on?
Carry on, yes.
Yeah, so he wanted to start a foundation, and his father thought he was nuts. It was way premature. But Manu managed to persuade his father to do that. And so this idea of giving back to the community, of being a philanthropist as he became, started very, very early in his life. I think that's a very unusual thing, never mind for those days as a business person struggling to build a business. He reached such a scale, as we know, global, 40 countries, huge operations. And it required a most unusual characteristic for a family business owner, because they did start bringing in at a relatively unusually early age professionals from outside of the family into management and onto the board. And I think that is what enabled them to keep going all these years and to continue developing the business, never mind in all these countries. And it's not just around Africa. And to survive through and to prosper through generations. He has been great believer in the potential for the private sector influencing government policy. And he did this a lot through the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, where at one time he was chairman. And then in 2003, he became the founder chairman of Kepsa. I was one of the founder directors, and so I have the inside story with him about how that happened, and against all the odds, because at that time, there was some interaction between the private sector and government. But it was more lobbying for the interests of an individual organization rather than for an industry sector, never mind for the private sector as a whole or for the country as a whole. And maybe I'll just, as we're still waiting for Manu, and I was going to ask him to talk about it, share a little bit with you about the founding of Kepsa. And it pretty much, the tipping point was at this retreat in Mombasa in February 2003, which was to launch the draft of Kenya's, not first, but pretty much second strategic plan, the predecessor to Vision 2030, a follow-up to the World Bank initiated PRSP, the private sector, the public sector development, private sector, what is PRSP? John and Gumi, I'm sure, can remind us. Public PR. John, What does PRSP stand for? Bill, help us. We'll come back to it. Anyway, it was a strategic plan that actually happened in at the end of the time of Moy's era, which not many people appreciate. I was part of the ICT sector group when we, through it, launched the country's first ever ICT policy. So there we were to launch this economic recovery strategy in Kibaki's regime, listening to the launch of the government's intended program, where one of its key authors, there were two leading it, was David Ndii, who's become differently notorious more recently. But it was him and Harris Mulle, who were the two prime authors of the economic recovery strategy. And at the sidelines of the meeting, the Minister of Planning in Kibaki's government, who was Anyang Nyong'o, now the governor of Kisumu, who brought those of us in the private sector who were there at that conference together and said, look, we want you in the private sector to speak with one voice. We're fed up with people coming one after another, each one purporting to speak for the whole of the private sector. And then the next day, someone else either to come and tell us the same thing, also purporting to speak for everyone, or the opposite. And a typical example is manufacturers versus importers, that sort of thing. So he challenged us to bring everyone together. And I was reading an interview with Manu that he gave in Harvard, where his first reaction to Anyang was, forget it. It's not possible. It can't be done. But that...
Sorry, Mike, to interrupt. Just to keep everyone updated is that Manu is having challenges connecting. We'll continue trying. So Salome is working on it. Kindly, everyone, bear with us and we'll try and sort out because it seems the connection issues on his end. So let's try and make sure that it works. Bear with us as we get a bio from his bio from Mike Eldon, and then I'll call on Bill to ask a question as we continue trying. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Irene. Let's hope Manu can join us soon. So, despite our concerns as to how possible it might be to set up a comprehensive umbrella body for the private sector, we started working on it. And of course, there was the Chamber of Commerce, but then as now, it had its limitations. And we would not have needed to form a new body. We would not have been asked to form a new body had the Chamber been able to fulfill that role as it does in so many other countries. It took us several years to build our muscle, to become inclusive, and to start becoming influential. Many people in government were very skeptical about the private sector, as they still are. They think we're all there to make short-term profits, to do deals, and only to set up such organizations to be able to prowl the corridors of power. But the great thing about Kepsa, and under the initial leadership of Manu, was that it was much more than that, and it still is. It has become amazingly influential in this country of very strong individual views and, you know, different interests. Again, as I said, for instance, of traders and importers, or like in the health sector, between insurers and hospitals and doctors and so forth. But it all has happened. And Manu has remained very active in Kepsa, including and not least as someone who drives the nomination committee, which enables us to have very smooth elections without politics and campaigning and that sort of stuff. Irene, you had another message?
I wanted Bill to kind of come in and tell us he's worked with Manu for a little bit.
Yes,
Bill,
by all
if you could,
means.
yeah.
Over to Bill.
Yeah,
There
hi,
you
you
go.
guys, and thanks, Irene, for organizing so many folks to listen to this story. I think I might have met Mike and Manu at the same time. I met Manu substantially when we went to Washington, D.C. with President Kibaki in 2000, and I can't remember, maybe 2. And he took us to the World Bank. About my earliest recollections of him are supporting the Joe Akali sector. I was at General Motors at the time, and we agreed to start buying our wooden pallets from some organization that he was involved in. And I think he was also involved early in another organization that I was part of. So I've known him, I guess, for 30 years. And substantially for 20. He's our elder. I talk to him all the time. We haven't talked much since the COVID times, because he spent some time outside of the country. But I'm very proud to say that he's been sort of a mentor for me in many areas, introducing me to a lot of people over the years, and that's why I wanted to be on this call to because every time he says something, it means something to me. I'm sure it's the same for Mike and for John Gumi as well. So we spend a lot of time on some Kepsa chat lines, and it's been good to stay up with Manu, and of course the success of his company. What I would ask him if he was here, I wanted to ask him a couple questions. That when these days, could you start a Mabati rolling mills? Could you get the money from people? Would the banks support you? Or back then, what was it like to get the money together to finance an organization like Mabati, that's now blossomed into so many other companies. In fact, I think one of the things that was astounding about my relationship with Manu is that I found out that he had a couple of factories across the river in Windsor, Ontario, from Detroit, Michigan, where I grew up. So I've had nothing but great times with Manu, and I was looking forward to asking him a couple questions when he shows up. But for now, I would agree with everything Mike said. Surely, as trustees of Kepsa and board members of Kepsa, and those of us who've been around since the Anyanyongo days and the early Mombasa meetings and the failure of the chamber and all that, I've been through all of it, and I can say that, as I said before, that every time Manu says something, I learn something. So for now, Irene, that's pretty much until he gets on the line. When he gets on the line, I have a couple questions for him. But for now, if that's enough, I can let somebody else speak.
Yes, thank you, Bill. Well, before we call on somebody else, I've seen a few people wanting to know your experience here over the 30 years, Bill. You've been here a long time. You're perhaps even more Kenyan than some of us. And some people want to know whether you're optimistic about where we are, where we're going, outlook the next 5 years, especially after given that we are expecting elections, and there's a bit of anxiety there, not necessarily fear, but what's your view? So go back to how you've seen it since you came and where you think we're headed.
Well, okay, that's quite a loaded assignment. Surely, you and I have talked before, and we talk a lot as private sector leaders, that we're definitely in a difficult time. I want to tell you that my conscience makes me tell you that while I watched Mudavadi and his ANC meeting over the weekend, it was hard to argue with anything he said about the state of the economy and some of the disappointments the private sector faces. And surely, since he has been in government for a very long time, it's a bit frustrating that somebody like that, who's talking the right story, is in view of the Kenyan political scene, doesn't seem to have much of a chance to be president, but you like what he has to say. So my concern about Kenya after the 33 years I've lived here is the fact that we've gone all this way, and I've seen lots of development, but I think the lack of consistent leadership in government, and of course corruption, as an American raised in an era of Foreign Corrupt Practice Act, regulatory issues and things, it's always been frustrating to American businesses, as I used to run General Motors, that we had to operate without any, in such a corrupt market. So I'm always optimistic. I don't think things can get much worse economically. The diaspora continues to send a lot of money our way. We've taken a lot of money from the Chinese. We've seen some development, but I think we need to stop focusing on politics and start focusing on investment. Joyce and I moved down to Taita from Nairobi, and we're in a county that's got lots of resources, and we also have a leadership vacuum in a way, because we don't have an investment authority in the county like they do in Laikipia and Kisumu and other places where forward-thinking governors have. So I'm kind of happier to be in Taita than I was in Nairobi. My outlook for Kenya for the next 5 years is it's going to be hard to get back to even.
Sorry, Bill, you carry on for a little bit. And what I want to tell everyone is that we now have Mr. Manu on, but he is talking through another phone. It's convoluted. That's the phone that he's going to talk to us through because he had connectivity issues from his end. And so
Irene, I think he's in. He's in. Yes, he's in.
Oh, by himself. Oh, directly. Directly, not using your phone, right?
Add him over the mic.
Manu,
Okay.
Are you there?
Yes,
Oh, there you
he
go.
is.
Ah, perfect. Persistence. I'm grateful. Thank you so much, Dr. Sally. And
Okay,
so everyone, we are starting a little late. Bear with us. We had those connectivity issues, and we'll go away straight to our host for today. And as I mentioned, our host is Mike Eldon. He is a member of several boards, and he's basically on governance issues and companies performing well. He's the guru to go to. But for right now, I'll ask him to do us the honor of introducing our speaker tonight, and we'll carry on with the schedule from there and try and salvage as much of what we had scheduled. To you, Mike Eldon.
Thank you very much, Irene, and good evening, Manu. Welcome. Delighted and relieved you've joined us. No, first of all, confirm that you can say hello and you are with us. I want evidence.
I'm with you.
Oh.
Good Lord, I don't know how, not having a secretary, lazing around, life is very difficult and enjoyable.
Okay, where are you? You're in Switzerland, huh?
No, I'm at home.
Oh, you're at home. Okay.
See, I'm still wearing a pajama.
No, and
Sure.
we don't want to know what you're wearing at the bottom half.
No, don't worry.
Manu, I've been talking a little bit about you whilst
Yeah.
awaiting your arrival.
Yeah.
And I was quoting this nice line about how you didn't have a silver spoon in your youth, but at least you had spoons, and how you started the foundation, the Chandaria Foundation, at a very young time in the development of the company, when your father thought you were a bit nuts, but you eventually persuaded him. I talked about you going to America for university and coming back. And I was about to talk about some of your gongs, that you are CBS and EBS and OBE from Britain, and that you're also RGG. And I don't know if even you know that you are RGG, because I've awarded this to you, and it stands for really good guy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So Manu
Thank you.
Chandaria, RGG, welcome to this program. And it's wonderful to have you here. We have 236 people listening in and admiring you in your pajamas.
Thank you.
So now, starting just very briefly with your early life, we're all influenced very much by our parents, aren't we? I wrote 2 articles at the beginning of last year about how each of Barack Obama and Donald Trump were influenced by their parents. How were you influenced by yours and their values and lifestyle?
Well, very much influenced in sense that when they came into this country in Kenya in 1916, my father could not speak English, read English, or write English. And for everything, he needed help. Somebody would come with him, either to go to the post office, or go to the client, or go to wherever he wanted to go, because English was the language that was mostly used over here. So we never thought that we would be the first in amongst our community, 5th or the 6th graduates in our community. It so happened that during 1940, when the war started, 39-40, I think that the Mussolini shook hands with Hitler, and they decided that Mogadishu will be utilized for then moving into Africa, into Kenya. And from Mogadishu, I think there was a little 10-pound bomb or something, and Asian community, where I am a member, we just shaken up. So in 1940, our parents decided that all working members stay here, the rest all go to India. And that gave us an opportunity to go to India. I studied until matriculation, that means up to senior Cambridge. And then our parents allowed us to go to the university. And that was something which was never thought of, because my mother was illiterate. And at 53, she started writing the first alphabet in our language. So it was something which was unbelievable to me. And then once I finished my university and my brother, they decided that we should both go to the United States. So I went to the United States, did my engineering, and then I did my master's in engineering and came back in 1950. And that was the story between my birth, 29, until 1950. It was nothing but education, staying in Kenya, both in Nairobi, born in Nairobi, but Nairobi and Mombasa. And after that, went to Mumbai. And what impressed me at that time, when the ship docked there, I couldn't believe my eyes that there were 6-story, 7-story houses and big avenues and huge everything. And I looked at myself and I said, I look the same. And why in Kenya we had only 2 or 3 houses which were 2 stories? What's wrong with us? And that really challenged me. But then schooling and university in Mumbai, and after that, university in the United States. Now, that was the basis that in which my parents would have otherwise never allowed the higher education. Normally, in our community, most of the people, after primary education, they go to Form 1. They are compulsory, every child has to go to the shop. And I would have been the same one. But then I was saved because I was in India. And that gave us a very big start in sense that the first graduates coming out from our family and doing and coming back. And at that time, we had a partnership with our family and the Shah family, my wife's family. And that partnership had broken in 47. And we were only left out when I came over here with one manufacturing plant with 40 people and 6 members of the family in Mombasa, Kalu Works. And then on top of it, 36 members at home, because we are a joint family. We're still a joint family, 50 members. So it was a big argument. For 6 months, we kept on arguing against each other. Why should we be working for a family? Is it really good for us to be in a little place like this, 6 members together on a 40 people plant, manufacturing plant? But then we decided that, look, during our university time, we were very much influenced by Mahatma Gandhi. And that built up the first basis that sacrifice is the first priority and should become a first priority in your life. And from that, because our parents sacrificed their life to do what we were and what happened to us. And so it all came back and said, well, no, I think that our parents have gone through all that problem and gave us the education. Now it's our responsibility to really serve the family and build. And so when we became from 40 members, we became over 150 members. All 4 of us, my elder brother and my 2 cousins, all 4 of us went to my father and asked him, how about setting up Chandaria Foundation? He looked at me and said, hey, is something wrong with you? I said, what's wrong with me? I'm okay. He said, no, you lived too long in the United States. I said, I lived only 3 years in the United States. He said, listen, we are not Rockefeller. We are not Vanderbilt. We are not Ford. There's a big hole over here. Come on, fill it up. And there are 36 members at the home. Get on with the work. Forget about this foundation. And so we started again. And when we became 400 to 500, 450 or 500 people, he came back. And he said, the idea was not a bad idea. Come on, I'll give 10% of the company to Chandaria Foundation and let's start. And Chandaria Foundation started with 1 scholarship. And I think that over the period of time, I think we are now in 35 countries, families all spread out all over the world, like we have offices in London, in Geneva, in Toronto, in Singapore, and businesses are in all 35 countries. So I think that from very small beginning, because of one basic attitude that we want to serve our family, we want to be doing something for our family, and not just decide, I'll take 9 to 5 job, and that's it. So that's how the Chandaria Foundation started and our business started.
Manu, you studied mechanical engineering in America. Why did you study that? And why didn't you become an engineer?
Well, I was a second engineer.
Sorry, hold on, Manu. Hold on, Manu. Our boss has something to say.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Manu. I can't tell you how grateful we are that you joined us. Bill Lay is a friend of yours and he wanted to sneak off quickly, but before he does, I want to give him a minute or less to ask a question because he says he has some burning questions for you. Bill?
Manu, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing, man?
Good. Look, this question now fits into your story. I've always wondered, in the context of starting a business today in 2022 with bank loans and interest rates and things, what was your plan back when your family started the company? Did you have to borrow money? Or did you have to go around and ask I mean, I've always wondered what was the financial foundation for what became Mabati and now Safo?
Well, the beginning of the family was frugality. Only consume what you can or what is needed and remain on the ground. And because of that, the wealth was created. And when we started borrowing money, our parents used to look at us, is something wrong with you guys? Why are you borrowing money? I said, well, if you can't borrow, then we'll not be able to expand. And as such, I think it was the borrowing of the money later on that we started and we borrowed from all over the sources, from the banks, from finance houses, and even also from the international organizations, because that was the only way we could grow. And in 10 years, in the first 10 years, we became from 40 people to 800 people. You couldn't do it otherwise.
Mike, are you there?
Yes, I am. I should resume.
Carry on from there and build on the financing and frugality and how we perhaps can borrow from his lessons.
Can I just, before going back to that, ask Manu about why he studied mechanical engineering and why he didn't become an engineer?
I became an engineer. I was the second engineer in Kalu Works. I had a boss on top of me.
Okay.
In Kalu Works. So
right.
The family decided that, look, if we have inherited the plant, otherwise we were in wholesale provision business. Premchand Brothers, my father's name, and the brothers, that business was only wholesale of provisions. And then when we entered, and they felt that if, because of the partnership, we had to take this plant of 40 people, you need engineering knowledge and see how you can expand. And that came in very, very, very handy. My brother studied food technology because we had set up the True Food, which is over here still existing.
We'll come back to you and education and how you have supported education in so many ways later, and what your advice is to young people and how they should get educated in today's world. But let's go back then to follow on from what Bill had been asking. And I'm wondering, the bigger you got, the more you diversified your sources of funds, didn't you? Including development finance institutions and presumably capital that you had accumulated within the family. But you didn't go public in many ways. Tell us about your views on going public. Why haven't more companies gone public in Kenya? And what about private equity, which is becoming increasingly popular?
Well, this has been asked to us for a long period. Many times have been asked why we haven't got public. The point is that the family believed that if we can make the profits, then the profits belongs to you because you put the effort. is not to really go out and get others to participate in that. And basically then when we could, because of our name, because of reputation, we could borrow as much as we wanted. So there was no necessity for us really for looking for a partner. And at the beginning, today we are 50 members of the family as a joint family. And so it's distributed all over the world. So the point is that it was not necessary. We kept on feeling about it. Yes, we should go public. But then every time it's our effort, it's our money, it's our profits. Why should we be able to share with others unnecessarily? And then we created a vehicle, Chandaria Foundation, so that we can spend for the public the money.
And how about private equity? Private equity doesn't necessarily have such a good brand reputation. Too often it's assumed that such people, they come in and they squeeze the asset in order to make disproportionate profits in a relatively short term and then get out again. What is your experience with private equity? Not necessarily with your own companies, but generally and particularly here in Kenya?
No, I think the private equity is there for making their own profits. And absolutely, they hold your hand. But while they are holding your hand, many a times it's a very costly, in sense that, and then if they lose the interest in your company, in your management, they immediately get out. And I think that, we require stability in any organization, and stability of financing part must always be there. If you don't, then you can always get into serious problems.
I must say my experience with private equity is that there's a whole spectrum from those, like I was suggesting, pretty much define the brand and like you have identified, to others who are much more in it for the long term and partnership. And I've come across some outstanding people with great values who become constructive partners and advisors on private equity.
But Mike, I agree. Sorry. I agree with you. And overseas, when some of the companies, we have private equity, but the size of that private equity is always smaller, so that we can control, not they. And to operate in all these countries, every country has its own rules and regulations to understand the country. But what we did was, what we manufactured, like we started manufacturing pots and pans. Then we started operating in 11 countries in Africa, only pots and pans. We manufactured the roofing. So now we've got almost 16 countries in Africa, only roofing. Now there is not a possibility to do it in Hong Kong or other places, because those, for them, it's a sunset industry. It's not sunrise, they're sunset industries. So whatever we pick, it has to be in multiple, not one. If we make one manufacturing plant, then we'll make very sure that we've got half a dozen plants in different, because then you have the raw materials same, your suppliers the same, the machineries suppliers are the same, and you know how to sell them.
And you can move your people around between companies as they grow.
That's right, that's right.
One of the people beforehand submitted this question, Manu, asking what the secret sauce was, SAUCE, explaining the long life of your business, the multi-generational life, and the one that's kept you as young as you still are. Tell us a bit about that, the generational transitions, and the bringing in of external professionals, the dealing with conflict, so many issues. What is your secret sauce?
Well, the secret sauce is that to keep the family joined, number one. to have meetings every 6 months, get together, understand the issues and problems. The problem in one country might be different than the other one. That number one is making sure that there is no dispute within the family. As a family, we must remain on one story. No three stories. And for that one, it required quite a bit of loyalty toward the family. And all of our young people, right from the day one, gets involved in the businesses, and then they started finding it out that the businesses are getting bigger and we cannot manage ourselves. And so we took a decision much earlier that all the professionals will be running our plants. So there is not a Chandaria in any country running any plant. They're only supervising, and not only one plant, a group of companies.
And how about the women? We know what a great support your wife Aruna has been to you, but in the background and not in the business, as has been normal for these earlier generations. How is it now? How are you viewing women as part of gender diversity?
I think that we found now that what the principle we had, are no women in our business. It means family women in our business. There are lots of women working for us, but not the family women in our business. And now we are finding it that it's just not workable. When we were younger, I'm one of 8. Means 4 brothers, I was one of 4. My cousins were 6 boys. So we had the manpower. Now I have 1 daughter, 1 son, and my daughter has only 1 daughter, and my son has 2 daughters. The whole equation is changing. And so we have felt that, I think that what we have kept on in our mind all the time is an old ideology, that women not in the business, let only men, and they can fight, but they are still in the same blood. They might not be able to, they'll find solutions. And so, but now it's changing. And I'm sure in future, the women will be managing our businesses from our family.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Irene.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I see one of our past speakers, Mr. Chap. If you could ask your question now. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Irene. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mr. Chandaria. Yeah, I've been living here in Kenya now for the past 12 years, and I've been following yourself and the wider Chandaria family for as many years. I've been living here, and I admire what you're doing and the passion you have for the country. I have a question for you. Is how does Kenya, in your view, or how would you like Kenya to be in the next 10 to 15 years? You know, Bill mentioned the challenges that the country is facing politically from a corruption perspective, but you as a human being and passionate about the country, how would you like Kenya to look in the next 10 to 15 years? I'm interested to hear your views on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to see Kenya in coming 15 years as a leader in Eastern Africa. As a leader in East African, because we have the talents, we have the business people, the industrialists, and all we need is to make very sure that good availability of level grounds so that we can compete with others. And I think that in coming years, Kenya has got a huge possibility, because there's only one country amongst all neighbors that we see without much of a dispute that we have seen. Politically, yes, I've worked in colonial times. I worked in President Kenyatta's time. I worked in Mr. Moi's time. I worked in Kibaki's time, and I worked in Mr. Uhuru's time. To me, politics does affect, but then the capabilities of the people within the country is so great, and a possibility that they will always continue to ride above. And Kenya, in coming 15 years, I'll be surprised, I'll not be here, but I'll be surprised if they don't turn out to be a leader in the eastern coast of Africa.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your answer. Appreciate it.
Mike, carry on.
Thank you. This question of influencing this leadership, you've been so active over the years, Manu, and before you joined us, I talked a little bit mentioning your chairmanship of Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and then being the founder chairman of Kepsa, the umbrella body that we formed in 2003. You were also the founder chairman of the East African Business Community. Not many people really know how much work it takes to influence government policy in formulation, never mind in implementation for desired impact.
Yes,
Equally,
I think.
Let me just add that equally many people think that we don't achieve very much in our advocacy because largely we do it quietly behind the scenes for it to be effective. But talk a little bit about your experience with business member organizations. What's the secret sauce there to make them influential as partners with government rather than as hecklers and whiners and moaners?
Mike, you remember Sir Ernest Wesey?
Yes.
Sir Ernest Wesey was our chairman. He was the Minister of Finance in Kenyan government. Julius Nyerere, President Julius Nyerere, picked him up to be the first Minister of Finance in Tanzania. He stayed there for 2 years and set it up. And then he was selected by the World Bank to be a country representative for Pakistan, where he went over there for 5 years. Then he came back. And when he came, because we've been consulting him since 1950, 52, 53, we've been consulting him that which way we should be going. And I think that he always gave us an idea that, look, the growth is the only way you can keep this family going. If you don't grow, this family will become, it'll break. So unless and until you keep on growing and grow as fast as possible, as much as possible, that's the only way you can go about it. Now he asked me, when I came down to Nairobi in 1900 and I think it was 70 when I came back again to Nairobi, I asked him, I said, listen, how do we influence these people? The government is very difficult all the time. He said, best thing is get involved in Kenya Association Manufacturers. So I got involved as a board, as a member, and then became a director, became a vice chairman, became a chairman. And then I started understanding the psyche that unless and until you are there capable of presenting not yourself, but the possibilities of the country's development. And that made me, I think Ambassador Mutawara was there, he was the General Secretary for East African Community. He said, why don't you people do something about businesses in East Africa? So I said, all right, we have a businesses in Kenya, Tanganyika, Tanzania, and also in Uganda. So we will certainly look into it and we can do something about it. And that's why the East African Business Council came up. And then it opened up that idea that only in business is not the only way that if you want to succeed, you have to just what we call business responsibility of integrating and creating an environment for business. And for that, I keep on, we call it the business environment, growing the environment for the businesses, and sitting with the government, one-to-one, explaining the problems, explaining the issues, not yourself all the time, but for the group. And when the people, the 16 people from the big industries sit together in front of the ministers, there is always an impact. And he told us that, look, the only way you want to grow, you must become partners in explaining what the business can do in the country. And I think that has worked out very well. Then Kepsa, you were there also in 2003. We created Kepsa again. And I think that business responsibility, not only the corporate social responsibility, but corporate business responsibility. Beside your own business, how do you see the environment of business in a country, wherever you're working? And this is something which is very important. And we found lots of good people trying to put their time in it.
Manu, do you remember, you mentioned Francis Mudara. Do you remember
Yeah.
the time you and I went to see him when he was head of the civil service in 2003, when the MOU wasn't working well between Kibaki and Raila, and ministers were jostling with each other. And we went to see Francis Mudara to complain about their lack of availability for us, or their interest in creating the enabling environment for the private sector that had been their commitment in campaigning. And you remember, I'm sure, that he invited us to the next meeting he was holding fortnightly with all the PSs. And we went to that meeting, you and I, and one after another, so many of these PSs gave the same speech, just bashing the private sector. They were useless, we're just corrupt, just in it for profits. And Mudara listened patiently and quietly as we did. And at the end, when they'd been through all their ranting, he said, so is it okay for you to meet with Kepsa once every, I can't remember, month or 2 months? And they just muttered, yes.
That's right.
That was
No, I
quite a
think
tipping point, wasn't it?
he was an excellent person and tried to find out an answer from the most difficult issues. You'd find an answer. And I think that our relationship with Francis, Ambassador Mutaura, has always been there. Even today, if I can pick up the phone tomorrow morning, I'll call him, he'll pick up the phone. The point is that these are the types of the people which has helped, understood the business community. And unless and until you understand the business community, which creates jobs, which creates profits, which creates a tax basis, unless and until that is being really protected all the way, you'll never make it.
Manu, we have 261 participants here. Talk to them a little bit about why it's a good idea for them to join their business member organizations, their professional organizations, to make a contribution, and through that to learn and to grow.
Yeah, well, my principle is just that, look, you cannot be just doing your own business. That's one part. Unless and until you expand yourself into influencing the environment of businesses, influencing environment of looking after the society. These are the stages, one after the other. The money is the one bigger part, but then after the money, what? How would I be able to influence the other members of the businesses? Unless and until I got an idea that I can get them together, listen to them, sit together, and find out the ways and possibility, you can never do it. And I would suggest that everybody, if you reach to a stage where you are capable, please give your time. Because if you don't give your time, because these are not a requirement by compulsory requirement, but if you don't give your time and your influence and your knowledge, then you know the businesses will not grow. And we want the businesses to grow. When I say in 15 years' time, Kenya must be a leader in the East Africa. And if it has to be a leader, then all of the business people must think twice. They have another responsibility of creating a better environment for business. Then the third possibility is to create a social responsibility for looking after the society. These are the stages. And I think that everyone who has been convinced about it have joined, has worked together, and have been able to put the ideas in the minds of the government. That look, just by ruling, you're not going to create an environment. Environment can only be created between two institutions, to thoughts, to people sitting together and finding the solution. And we have got 101 ways of solving problems. And the problems are going to, every day there'll be a new problem. But if we know that we can do it, the capacity to say, yes, I have a capacity to do it. I want to do it. And I will influence the people. I'll listen to others and see what they have to say. And then make up our mind. And we have succeeded in East Africa, in Kenya, and also in Tanzania. We have not been able to succeed in other countries, but I'm sure that we will. If Kenya makes its effort, it will be #1 in eastern coast of Africa.
The other thing about being a part of these organizations is that the best of Kenyans participate on this voluntary basis. I know Michael Hopkins is in on this, listening to you, Manu, and he and I talk about these things a lot. He's a professor of corporate social responsibility, and what we are talking about here is what we call personal social responsibility, isn't it? This is you as Manu, supported by your organizational environment, being a volunteer in support of creating that enabling environment, not just for you, but also for your
for everybody,
including for your competitors.
It doesn't make difference, because the point is that if the country expands, I expand.
Yes.
If the countries get stuck, well, then it will affect me also.
Now, here's the thing. A few weeks ago, I was asked to speak at the Africa Business Ethics Conference on the subject of self-regulation by the private sector. Now, a few sectors are regulated, like the finance sectors, but like in manufacturing, you don't have to be a member of the Association of Manufacturers. In the flower growing industry, you don't have to be a member of the Kenya Flower Council. So the good guys who want a level playing field and to close and to introduce transparency and accountability and close loopholes, they join. The bad guys are not interested in that, so they don't join. So the question is, should we be making
Mike, I believe that, Mike, I believe those, how they do it, why they do, and why they do not join. The point is that the short-sightedness. The question is that the growth does not, it's just you grow, the country does not grow. Unless the country grows together with you, you cannot, you'll be insignificant.
But my question, Manu, is, should we be making membership of organizations in flower growing or manufacturing mandatory to enable better self-regulation?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's not, because the question, more you come together, all right, there are different opinions. you will find fights going on in between when of discussion, but it always turns out to be a better solution than otherwise. So to me, I think that there is no shortcut. And when I remember Sir Ernest Wasey, and he says that if you want to get anywhere, get involved. And that's why I got involved in creating a better environment for business. And then I thought that, what can I do now further? Then the further I decided, I will become then, look at the society and do something for them.
I think there's someone behind you looking to cheer you on, Manu. Good evening, Aruna. Welcome. Oh, she's running away.
That's right, that's right.
How would you describe your leadership style?
My leadership style is not to insist on anything, is to create an environment where we all take decision together, that we become a part of decision making. Many people are just on their own and say, no, no, this is the only way it can be done. To me, no. Listen to everybody, get together and create a possibility that there are, instead of one mind, 10 minds. And then you can really grow.
So how did you develop that mindset? Because it's very unusual and does not align with what's called founder's syndrome, the know-it-all, who just gives instructions and doesn't trust anyone else.
No, well, I just, because I thought that, you know, the what would be the best way of growing? Growing in my business is one thing. Now growing the environment, I can't do it myself. And this was the idea behind my mind, that when Sir Ernest told me, get involved, that's the time when I started understanding what do you mean by getting involved. It's getting involved not only on your own business, get involved overall to see how best you can perform. And I think that it has worked out extremely well.
We've just had a question about...
And I can see the other lady on the back of you too.
That's true. Yes, you
Evelyn.
can greet Evelyn. Have no, I've lost my train of thought there.
While you come back, Mike, there's a question that's burning on everyone's mind. Dr. Manu, everybody's asking, or at least quite a few people, what's your view on corruption? And do we ever think that we can get rid of it, or at least reduce it in this country? Because it seems we are at a place where people feel helpless.
Well, I think that corruption is something which is almost a plague. It's something which we, you know, people never wanted to go to Uganda because there's the black water. Everybody wants to save themselves. And I think that the point is only that when the corruption at the levels that are happening, and corruption is everywhere, it's not only here, we go to India, you go to China, you go to America, you go wherever it is. But it has to be on a limit. It cannot be out of limit. And today we are finding it that for anything that you want to do, 33% goes away straight away as a cost added. Now to compete in a free world, corruption really does not allow you to do it. And corruption really does not provide the services. At the end of the day, the services create more work, more jobs. But if you don't have the services and the services are poor, then I think that does not work. To me, I don't participate in corruption, number one. Number two, I thought that the leaders will have some kind of a sense that at the end of the day, as I'm thinking, not only of my own business, but business of this country, as an environment of this country, as I'm thinking people of this country, the minute you get to the stage 1 to 2 to 3, then you can certainly influence a lot of people. Yeah, and corruption is not the right thing to do. We thought that we will find the solutions, but we have not been able to yet find the solutions. It cost us very dearly. It cost us almost 25 to 30% in everything that we do. Otherwise, our services will be much better, much easier to approach, and it'll make a different level.
And a lot of it is to do with the cost of politics, isn't it, Manu? And seeing all these huge rallies and big meetings, where's the money coming from? And it's got to come from all sorts of sources.
No, but the point is that why are we poor? Tell us. When I ask why are we poor, we have got all the brains that we can think about. And that's what I want to tell you, that when I went to Mumbai, it opened my head. Wow, we have got also two hands. They look like me. What's the difference? And when I went to New York and I stayed on a 65th floor in New York hotel, I couldn't believe it. The challenge is that your mind must push yourself and say, hey, it's not acceptable. Why should we not be same as the United States? Why should we not same as China or as India or as any other country? We have all the possibility. If our children are not intelligent enough, we can say, yes, then they were dumb, but we are not dumb. We have got all the possibilities. All we require is a capacity to stand up, fight for it, but not individually, as a group. When Kepsa fights.
Manu, you are a member of the National Economic Social Council, the NESC, and just a couple of days ago, Raila was saying he wants to reintroduce that. Now, NESC is what gave birth to Vision 2030. How are you seeing us on the path to Vision 2030 to becoming a seriously middle-income country of shared prosperity?
All the possibilities exist. When I can see from my parents, from a little bitty business of 40 people, getting into 35 countries, doing businesses of various types. If it's possible for me, what's not possible for a country? The question is that, are we really geared? Do we want to do? If I don't want to become somebody, then I'll never be somebody. But I want to become someone. Then yes, I have to put in that effort. And the effort is not only on me, and not for me alone, but for the people around me, for the country in which I live.
Do you consider yourself to be a coach? One of the questions that came on, in fact, that's the one where I lost the train. When we moved on, do you consider part of your leadership style being that of a coach? Do you see yourself as a mentor? And we'll talk a little more about coaching after you reply.
No, I'm not a coach. I'm a propagator. I would like to propagate an ideology and thoughts which has made success to me, to my family, to my businesses. How about multiplying that? How about making Kenya a part of it? That it can be done.
But are you a proponent of coaching as part of a leadership style?
Sure. But the point is, it's not insisting a leadership, it's not getting elected for, it is showing yourself contributing towards the best of human endeavor, whatever that you do. Unless and until you do that, you're limiting yourself And everybody limits themselves because they think that, oh, they can't do it. They can do it. And everybody can do it if they want to do it. But it requires a definite, a real hard attitude towards it and say, yes, it's for me, but for us. And for us, it's for my Kenya. It's for my Kenya, it's for my Africa. When I go to Nigeria, I don't think I'm a Kenyan. I'm a Nigerian. When I go to see my South African institutions, I'm a South African. Because to me, what makes me the most influential or capable for handling the issues of that country at that particular time. And I think we can all do it. We have everything that we can, but challenges must be accepted. And if you don't challenge yourself in life, you can never make it. It's an easy
I
life,
think
yes.
you're definitely
Yeah.
showing us what a propagator you are, but I'm not sure it
Yeah.
excludes being a coach or a mentor. I really
No.
Yes, can I, Dr. Manu,
Yeah.
before we ask a question from the forum, there are two questions that keep coming up, and one of them is, during your time when you started, perhaps getting jobs was not difficult, but now we see a lot of graduates, a lot of qualified people, and they are youths and willing to work, but there are no jobs out there. So the question is, what's your advice to somebody who's just graduating or perhaps underemployed? And how do you turn that around? And two, given the fact that we have a compounding challenge of COVID, in addition to already a bad job situation, how do you come out from all of that and rise and be somebody and contribute to the economy? Thank you.
Well, I used to be a chancellor of TUK, Technical University of Kenya, for 5 years. President Mwai Kibaki appointed me, and they wanted me to continue again. I said, no, I've enough 5 years now. I'm still a chancellor of USIU. Our children has got all they need. They're intelligent, they're capable, but there is no ground to play. Now, if you don't have a ground to play, you just go to a school with 5 stories high and no ground to play, then the children cannot develop. The question is that we want to have a ground to play in businesses. We require areas that we can go around influence. Not only your own businesses, but anything that you touch that you would like to increase. So to my way of looking at it, yes, jobs are impossible, but jobs are not the only area where you go. I stay home for 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours, do nothing. And I can still go and do something outside. Nobody stops here. I can go to a school and say, I'd like to teach. Nobody will say no. You say, but what salary is going to come to me? You're not getting salary anyway. You're sitting at home anyway. Now, do you want to be a party to something which is growth? Then you go. If you don't want to be a party to what is growth, then you stay home. And this is the worry about it. What's for me, I'll do it. Then the country is only for that much. What's for Kenya? Then yes. And I think there's so many little things that we can do. The planting of trees, the cleaning of areas, going to the school, helping the schools, all this can be done. The graduates are all sitting around home doing nothing. Why can't they do that? Nobody stops them. It will create a possibility. Let me give you an example of very we created a Chandaria MIHV Health Center, and I think Mike would remember that because it was a Rotary project to start with. And this man came down from America, and he said, "I'm going around all the Rotary clubs that I've gone through, 3 times, 4 times. Nobody's interested in my idea." So I said, "Okay, let's work on your idea and let's do something about it." And he created 400 volunteers. There is the health center, and he created 400 volunteers. And he said, "Look, all you have to do, I'll give you 2 T-shirts and 2 pair of jeans. I want you to go out and select 10 homes. Go and help. Whatever the problems are, if there's school problem, if there's income tax problem, if there's a business problem, if the food problem, whatever it is, go and help those 10 houses." I tell you that the change that took place in that area, in that 5 years that he stood over there, was unbelievable. Now, nobody paid, but then everybody said, "Why don't you do something for me? I can't do it today. Why can't you go and do it for me?" And it's automatically start work. Work is just, it's a connecting people for something to be done. Now, if you don't have that ideology at all, and you are for myself alone, and I'm for me, then there's a limitation. You already built a block around you.
How did you become a buddy of Mother Teresa?
Oh, it was very interesting. My daughter, as this comes up now, why the daughters are not allowed. My daughter did her first degree in London, and she came back over here, and we told her that, but it's not a possibility for us to absorb you in our organization. So every time when I came home over here, he will come back and say, "I'm bored. I'm bored." And I said, "Well, why do you have to be bored?" Let me give you an idea. I got a friend of mine who is now helping Mother Teresa to build a home. "Why don't you go over there and do it?" He said, "Where?" I said, "Slum over here in Kariobangi, a Huruma." He said, "In a slum, nothing doing." I said, "Why? What's the problem with you? Come on, if you want to work something, go and do it. And you're not working for anybody else. You're working for a celebrity anyway. Go." So she started going. There was one old double-decker bus. That was their office. And they started working. And she worked for a year or so. One day, Mother Teresa had come down to the American ambassador's home, which is in front of my home here on Gathiaka. So while she was coming back, at that time, we used to have a name board outside our house, Manu, Chandaria. That woman had the guts to drive in, press the bell, and my wife, Aruna, came down and said, "Is this anyway home of Preeti Chandaria?" Very surprised. So, "Mother, please come in." He said, "No, first get me her photograph. I'll have to bless." Then she came in. She came in 4 times at our home. And every time she has come, we have become more on the ground, more feeling that, my God, if people like this exist, what are we? Nothing compared to that. But it made us so humble that every time she came, she would not even have to take a drop of water. She'll just come to say, "Hello, how are you?" Fine. Now that grew up. So one time I got a nice painting depicting Mother Teresa's work of a lady who is wearing a white sari with a blue ribbon and doing the work of orphans and things like that. So I asked her, I said, "Mother, I'd like you to autograph this." And she said, hey, but I'm not a painter. I said, but then try, please try. And she painted her name. God bless you, M. Teresa. To me, people of that nature, that quality, not only one Mother Teresa, but number of them, which has come into my life, has made me believe that, look, there's much more than to just be feeling, oh, wow, I'm Mr. Manu Chandaria, than the people that you can serve. And I think it has opened up our eyes like nobody's business. I'm not a Christian, but I loved her. And she, if you see her letter, 10 lines she'll write at 3 o'clock in the morning, written to me, Aruna and Manu. You know, you feel something that, my God, if this quality of people, but it influences you, it makes you more human than any time else. And these
Manu,
are something, yeah.
You were talking about giving advice to your daughter, giving her suggestion, dare I say, maybe even coaching her. What advice do you have for young ones today? And coming back to this question that I said I'd come back to about how should people go about their university education? Should everyone go into STEM now, the science, technology, etc.? What about the humanities? Are they a waste of time? What should they be doing relative to emerging job opportunities, whether self-employed, being employed, whatever?
You know, the government of the country felt that there has to be more expansion of the businesses, of the university, education, higher education. And we used to be only one university and 2 constituent college. And after that, it became 8 universities for a number of years. Then during the Mwai Kibaki's time, it opened up. Today we got almost 65 universities. Now, the education is made available. But besides the education, the government didn't decide that for all the people that's coming out from those institutions will need work. And that is where the government is always falling back, that they are not creating the environment that's necessary for more businesses to grow in this country. They're just not. If you ask the Minister of Commerce and Industry any one time, he doesn't have a time to go any other places. What he should be really doing is to go at every industry, ask him, support him, push him. Every businesses, go and ask, what can we do for you? The minute we start that kind of an attitude, then I think the country will. So education was expanded, but then the output of the education, the children, they have also the ambitions. It was not being organized for them. And
So
to
we
me,
are where we are. What's your advice to them, to the young students?
Well, I just mentioned, you were not there. I think I just mentioned, please go and do anything that you can. Sitting at home and eating nothing, with your parents is not enough.
Let's assume you're at university. You've qualified for university. What subjects should you be taking given the emerging job market?
What subject I was taking?
Should the young ones, your advice to the young ones?
No. I would not prefer only graduating in normal arts. That's okay. But I would like them to be graduating into computer sciences, in mechanical engineering, electronics, electrical engineering, medical sciences, everything that can give them a job, number one. But to give them a job, the governments also must create a possibility for them to be absorbed. If I can't absorb more people than 5,000 or 4,000 are employed, then how, from 40 to 4,000? Well, why not 40,000? So the question is that, is the government realizes that by giving something, creating an environment of education, and not being able to create an environment of good businesses, good employment, good possibilities, then you have the children are running around.
Presumably,
Dr.
you would
Manu.
agree that in addition to the technical skills, they should be helped to develop their non-technical skills, like obviously you did, because you didn't emerge as just a techie from America.
Yes, I think the only technical skill is not necessary, but the point is that anything that can give you a job, anything that you can utilize for doing better for your country, you should.
Dr.
And
Manu, yeah, a quick one.
Yeah.
Then Mike will continue. There is a question that I've been asked several times, and that is to do with healthy living. And everyone says that because Mike earlier mentioned that you'll soon be turning 93. That is mind-boggling to most people here. And so there must be a secret as to how you've managed to work as hard as you have and balance family and relationships and still look as healthy and vibrant as you do. What's your secret? How do we go about living the same way, if not some?
Well, the point is that with all the wealth around me, I'm still a very simple man. I like people. I like to help the people. I just keep myself mentally alert in sense, I can't read very much these days now. So the books which I see behind your I don't have any over here. But the point is that I keep myself, as long as you're worried about your own country, about the people around you, you can find a solution. If you don't worry, and that's what is happening with people with money, they don't care about the rest. They just walk 6 inches above the floor. Now, you cannot do anything. Yeah, you can help yourself, but to help others, there has to be a mental attitude. And to me, because my health has remained very well, number one, and number two, that I always believed that I can play a bigger role than what I am playing. And that challenge continues even to date. That yes, I can play a better role. And this is most important for every one of us. If we don't understand that walking 6 inches above and walking on the floor makes you to believe and to understand what life is all about. You walk 6 inches above, then you will just think, oh yeah, happy, okay. That's one Manu Chandaria. The other Manu Chandaria would be walking on the floor, going to the slums, looking after the children, finding them out, bringing them at home over here. That is the Manu Chandaria that I'd like to have and see. So I think it's a choice, and I think that it's a fundamental philosophy that you do good. Every human being does want to do good for themselves. But then how much can you do good for others? That's the most important part. And you graduate above yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Manu. I hear you saying that you keep it simple, you live a simple life and be of service to others. Walk on the ground with everyone, not 6 inches above. Thank you.
There's another one that's at the center of the Manu I know that comes so naturally to him. keep the child within alive. The child within you is alive, isn't he, Manu? That gives you that
Yes,
twinkle,
yes,
that
yes,
mischief, that humor.
yes. Well, the point is that if you are not a human being who can enjoy life, be friends of others, make others' life happier, then you're one of those. There are many, millions of them are there. There are the richer people and the people for themselves. The minute you extend yourself, and my principle is to extend myself to others, because I've done enough for me. I don't need to be done more for me. To me, what can I do for the country? What can I do for the people? What can I do for the children? What I can do for so many things that are there. But if I don't even think about it and just walk 6 inches above, then nothing will come to me about that.
Dr. Manu, so given where we are now, where you started 50 years ago, in a short sentence, are you optimistic about Kenya? Do you think we are headed in the right direction in spite of the challenges that we are facing?
People should fight themselves their war. We cannot fight. I cannot fight your war. You cannot fight my war. I should fight my war. And the country has got all the potential, all the possibilities. Everything that's going is good for us, provided we can cut the corruption, number one. And number two, create ability and availability of work. And work can be created. From 40, we created 4,000. It can be done. It's nothing that is impossible to be done. It can be done, but the question is that, is the government with us?
Yeah.
Is the people, the leadership in the country is with us to understand that what is required? And if you don't understand what is required, then basically it'll never work.
Mike, ask 2-3 more questions, and then we'll start to wrap it up.
Okay.
John, we have one raised hand, and John Ngumi is not with us?
Not yet.
Okay. I'm wondering, Manu, are you working on your autobiography? Are you on volume 8 yet?
One of my friend decided that she will write a book on me. And she came home, she took all my papers, she segregated everything, she collected everything. Unfortunately, she became sick and she ultimately died. And since then, I kept the papers there, but I've not yet found a person who will be able to write. And I feel that books does play its role, but in today's world, I think that these are much more. Since, for example, yesterday it was interesting. I had a big argument with Aruna. Yesterday, 8 people came from Churchill Show to take my interview. There were 8 people in the house. They all came with this, but then ultimately taking interview for 1.5 or 2 hours, and then compiling into a Sunday show. You know, I could not believe that why Churchill has been so popular on NTV. It's one show a week, I think. And many a times it's in Swahili, so I cannot understand fully the implications of it. But this time it was in English, so he wanted to do it. To me, I could not believe that why would that organization agree that they want to interview me. I still could not understand. I phoned him up again. I said, hey, just tell me, just one good reason. Why did you choose me? He said, you probably don't know yourself. Oh, I said, that's surprising that I don't myself. He said, you don't know. He said that people talk about you, people know about you, people would like to hear about you. And that's why we thought that we should make an attempt to have you. The question is that why would people come along to do all this? Unless and until you show up, Mike, why do people come to you? Why do I invite you and say, please be one of the coach of my people over there? Why? Because you can give something. And giving, many a times people say, oh no, I can't give everything. Giving is one of the hardest things in life. And to give people which will create them happier. That's what one should be able to aim. And I'm glad that we have been able to, that when I look at my life of 93 years, I find that I've done a good job to myself, but good job around me, that I've influenced many more people around me. And I think that, and I have done it with no personal interest about it. So to me, I think it's a good life. Ma'am, you asked me, that's a good life. Yes, I've lived a good life. I've enjoyed my life, and I'm happy. To be happy.
You joined Rotary in 1963, and you were one of the earliest non-Mzungu leaders. You were there were 2 or 3 Asian leaders before you, and 1 African, Joe Anjui.
Yeah.
Talk a little about Rotary. How important has Rotary been in your life, and what can you tell those who are listening in about Rotary and why it's a good idea for contributing and benefiting, just like belonging to business associations?
I think Rotary is something which you push yourself for some social work, for social good. It's a group of people who then get together. It's not for any particular interest. All right, I sit on a table with 6 of people. We might talk some business at one time, but then our attention is always towards a greater good of the society. And all our projects in the Rotary which we did, like I brought Jaipur food. It has done so great. We created Sunshine Rally. It has done
Tell us
so
about
great.
that. Tell us about that.
Well, Sunshine Rally was just purely because, my brother was deaf. One year he was very deaf. My second brother was also deaf. My third brother is also deaf. And I'm also, Aruna thinks that I'm also getting deaf too. But there was a disability. And we found that people with disability are totally forgotten. They're not counted as that they are there. So we decided that how about giving them a better time? Even one day a year. How about giving them a better time? And so the rally started. And with 600 people to start with, today it has become the country's, all the Rotary clubs participates, and some 4,000 people, children come. The joy that you see on those faces when they come out of their homes or out of their schools or institutions, and they spend their time where they feel, oh, somebody is there who wants to look after us. Somebody is there who wants to make us happy. That joy, you cannot measure it. It's impossible.
The first one was in 1980, wasn't it? And I know because I was one of the organizers. And you're quite right. The spirit of attending those is so uplifting for us.
Yes. The point is that many a times people say, oh, I did that. But you'd forget about what they did for you.
Yeah.
Made you more human than what you were. It's
Dr.
not that.
Manu. Yeah, Dr. Manu, sorry if I interrupted, but we are getting close to the closing time. So what I'll ask is, I'll come back to you, Mike, but for right now, I'll ask Dr. Salome to give maybe a question or a comment regarding, Dr. Salome Gito, are you there? Regarding what we have learned today, and then we'll ask a question, take a comment from Mike, and then we'll start to wrap up because we're getting close to the time. Dr. Gito, are you there?
Yeah. Where's Salome?
Hi, Manu. Thank you. Thank you, Irene. I've
Yep.
been listening and I don't have a question. It's just an appreciation because I thought I knew Manu. There's so much always to learn, always refreshing to hear this. And from the comments, great inspiration, great encouragement. I'm so glad we're able to get you on. Thank you so much, Irene, for organizing this. So I don't have a question, just an appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Salome. And then Jab, are you still there? Closing remarks?
Yeah, thanks, Irene. I found this probably the most interesting session you had over the last couple of years. It gave me a great insight in Dr. Manu's thinking, and fantastic to hear how positive he is and how positive he is for the country as a whole. And yeah, I think it's a real upliftment because we are having some difficult times ahead of us in the coming months. So yeah, I'm hopeful that everything will be fine. And thank you very much again for organizing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jab. And Abujani is our sponsor. Abujani, say something quickly.
Thank you very much, Irene, for having us. And thank you, Dr. Manu, for coming on board. So we want to thank everyone who has joined, and we really appreciate that you've gotten to hear such great insights. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Manu, everybody seems to agree that perhaps the greatest or the secret sauce to having a fulfilling life is, even as you strive to make money and be successful, service to others perhaps is the most fulfilling. And because of that, your life doesn't get boring or monotonous, or you're always grounded in service to others. And we want to say thank you so much for making the time to come through. We have been anticipating this since the beginning of the year, and we have learned a lot in business. There was somebody who wanted to ask one final question on a light note. What is the biggest, or maybe the first product that turned your company profitable? And then we'll go back to Mike, give remarks and close. What's the first product that made your company profitable? When was the first time that you thought, we now can do this? We are on a good path.
Well, you know, when we were in, my first plant was started in 1929. That's the year where I was born.
Yes.
And after, it was surprising that after so many years of 29, 30, 40, 50, after 51 years, or 21 years, 22 years, I joined them. And when I look at the products that we used to make, and the one day when we produced a kettle, instead of only sufurias.
Yeah.
And we've been producing sufurias. And when we produced a kettle, I took it around with in my home and just showed everybody, see what we have produced. It was something very different for us because it required a spout, it required a trainer, it required a handle, it required cap, you know, so many things it required. And that was a complex product for me. and it helped me. But what I gained from that is that there were 3 manufacturers in the country. One was in Mombasa, one was in Kampala. And so I had to go to Kampala because when I started producing and produced in such a quantity that our parents said that, now come on, now go and sell. I said, listen, I'm an engineer. I manufacture. I'm not cut out to sell. He said, no, go and sell. And so with a small 2-door car, Opel, myself, my wife, and a 2.5-year-old daughter, we went to Kampala. And the man in Kampala, which has been, if we sell anything for say 325, the next day you'll say, my price is 320. He sell it 320, he'll say, my price is 310. You could never win him. So what I did was very simple, and it's very interesting also, that do we want to win the market or do we want to win the people? Who is your market? Who will buy from you? And every morning at 10 o'clock, I'll get from my home and I'll go to this office, this shop, this shop, this shop. In a day, I'll go and cross about 10 shops. Talk to them about everything. What's the news today? What are the issues about their problems of children? What is the university issues? What are your tax issues? Whatever it is. In 1.5 years, 1.5 years, it took me. I made all of them my friends. Then we bought a premises, imported the goods, and said, this fellow is selling at 310, mine is 310. He sells at 3.5, here's a credit note for another 10 cents. And he just shook. He said, no, thank you very much, let's become partners now. He said, your incoming, 75% will be ours, 25% yours. He said, nothing doing, 50-50. If you want to agree 50-50, we'll agree. And then in 3 months' time, we agreed. For the first time, we started making enough money. For all these years, my parents had worked for it, but we didn't make enough money for that. But for the, so what was is to win the people, win your customers.
Yeah.
While I didn't have anything to sell because I couldn't sell anything. If I sell, then it has to come in a wagon, and wagon used to have 500 or 5,000 sets of souvenirs. Now, if you sell for 10, where would I go? Nothing. But then when I decided that I've done enough work with each, is buying the loyalty of the people, making him to believe in yourself. Those are the people when they started with this. From that day onwards, the company started. He started making money, our company started making money. But it's a question of that, the tactics of working together.
Yeah.
Not against each other, with each other.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Manu. And everyone listening, this is Nairobi Business Forum. Write me an email with irenegadiaka@gmail.com and I will send you the recording. And let's see you here next month. Mike, I will ask you to give a vote of thanks to Dr. Manu, and then we'll meet here next month. Thank you.
Irene, thank you. Manu, about 2 weeks after you turned 93, I turned 77. And my ambition over all these years that I've known you was to keep going like you keep going. And all these people who've been online today with us can readily understand why I so look up to you and want to be like you all these years to come in my life, to emulate what you've been doing with yours. You are such a role model. You are such a joy to have a friend as a friend. And really, we thank you so much for sharing these great stories with us here this evening. And thank you, Irene, for having the thought of bringing Manu along and bringing him together with me as my friend over all these years in Rotary and Kepsa and elsewhere, and everyone also who's been listening in.
Thank you. And that is it from us. We, as you can see, we would have gone on for longer because we are not tired of hearing from you, Dr. Manu. So can you promise that we should invite you again, maybe this time next year, just to touch base on where we are? I'm hoping that you'll say yes, you'll come back and visit us again. Thank you, Dr. Manu.
And please invite
yeah.
me in 16 years' time when I'm Manu's age
Okay,
today.
come on, man. 16 years times you want to get me into the grave, though I'm not going to be in the grave. They'll burn me. You better rush it.
Yeah, we'll look to calling you both again then this time next year. And with that, thank you so much everyone for attending and for staying with us until now. It's way past our allocated time. We thank you and we say good night. Stay safe, and as Dr. Manu said, keep serving others even as you look to serving yourself. Thank you once again. And yes.
Can you tell that I will be on the show of Churchill on Sunday at 8 o'clock, NTV?
Sure. 8 o'clock, Churchill show. Dr. Manu will be there. I'll definitely be watching that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
See you then. Good night.
Good night. Good night, everybody. Good night. Even at this age, I had to learn how to do all this, you know.